unidentified henchman in Eyewitness,
Oh, that's right.
which was one of Bill Hurt's early films, Sigourney Weaver. So now I've made it all the way to leader of Triad.
All right.
Things really have evolved.
But yeah, you were, according to this, you were General Tan in Martin Scorsese's Kundun.
That's
That's right.
true.
That's right.
That was an interesting job too.
Yeah, he's a lot of interesting jobs. But you've been around for a while. We'll get into that. But first, Perry Young. Pronounced
Yay.
correctly? Young?
Yes, John.
Did you get applause?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Did I get applause?
Tell you, Rick.
Go ahead, Perry. Do you want to tell him or should I tell him?
You tell him you're doing such a great job.
Oh, yeah, but you wrote this on your IMDb. It's listed as you wrote this bio. American actor and musician from Oakland, California, plays Father Yun in Cinemax's Warrior, produced by Justin Lin and other people. He was fan favorite Ping Wu on Steven Soderbergh's The Knick, and has guest starred on Gotham, The Blacklist, Blue Bloods, to name a few. Principal roles in films include Condemned, Jade Pendant, and John Wick Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Perry is a member of the La Mama Theater's Great Jones Repertory Company of New York City.
Wow.
He is a multi-award-winning Japanese, now how do you pronounce the flute?
Shakuhachi.
Shakuhachi flute craftsman, and the first ever supported by both the American and Japanese governments. He appeared on stage with Vangelis as a guest soloist in Doha, Qatar in 2012. And you should definitely go to both of their websites. Your documentary.
Having worked in the business, she came up with this idea to make a little short film of all the people I've been involved with and how many women have played my wives.
On screen,
Oh.
not involved with off screen.
Well, I think there was a mention of at least one
Off-screen one?
theater thing.
Okay.
It was on-screen stuff, so that was like her little thing there. So since then, I've collected a few more wives
There you go.
How many wives have you had on screen?
on screen.
Did you count?
Or theater, and theater.
Theater, several. On screen, probably at least a dozen. A couple of repeats. We renewed our vows.
Well, there's the intros. And now let's cut to the chase, because I'm pretty sure you're not here to talk about or interested in more, or you might be, other than Warrior, correct? Everybody seen the show on Cinemax? You haven't seen the show?
Then what are you doing here?
Well, because they love you.
Yeah.
But do you have any questions specifically? Since we're talking about Bruce Lee and his legacy, does anybody have anything they want to ask before we begin?
What is it like to work with Shannon Lee, who is executive producing it and is Bruce Lee's daughter?
Well, I mean, once you walk on the set and you see Shannon Lee, you go, we are not fucking this up. You know, I mean, like, it's a dream come true for a Chinese American actor to like meet like, you know, the daughter of like one of the most iconic human beings on the planet. So, and having said that, he was also one of the most inspirational, if not the most inspirational person for me to do what I do. So it's like there's an immense pressure to get it right. There's also, but she's also so like down to earth. She's also like, we're here to like just make art, and this is what my father wrote. And you know, you just look at what she's doing with her father's work, his legacy, and you just, there's a responsibility, pressure, but also there's so much love and care for the material, because it's part of my life and makes me do what I do easier. You know, to know that Bruce was put on this planet to like help people in general. I mean, people I met all over the world basically says, I love Bruce Lee. I mean, how amazing is that? So basically it's an amazing once a singular kind of experience to work with Shannon Lee.
Both of you have had very long careers in film, television, and theater. What is it like to work in a production that with such a huge Asian cast, not just Asian American, but Asian international? Can you speak? Can both of you speak to that?
Well, it's an unusual experience because there are very few projects that have come around, particularly film and TV, that included so many Asian roles, but such a diverse number of Asian actors. I mean, it was amazing that we worked with Asian actors we didn't know, which is unusual because we tend to know a lot of the same people, particularly in New York. You run across the same people in the same community. But here, this was an international cast, people that we've never worked with, and they were all terrific. But the project itself is more than just having lots of Asian roles. It really digs deeper into the history and the culture that a lot of people aren't aware of. In some cases, even Asian Americans aren't aware of. So it really shines a very bright light on the history involved. In America, I mean, it's not simply an Asian American story, it's an American story. Because it's about immigrants and the struggles that immigrants have gone through. And it's done in a way that is really provocative, but also very grounded in a lot of actual events and things that transpired at the time. So it's based on fictional writing, but it's also based on historical fact, so that there's a foundation there. It's not all just kind of fantasy. And I think it will provide the audience with a history lesson as well as an entertainment vehicle, which it does provide too. So it was a great experience for me because you got to work with a lot of really great people in front of and behind the camera. And that doesn't always happen. And the end product, I think, shows all the skill that was brought to this project.
I know that in some of the early press, it talked about San Francisco really being a character unto itself, a very important character, along with all of the other characters. Were you guys privy to that at all, or did you just show up on set and rock and roll?
Well, I think we were able to put in our 2 cents whenever it came up. It wasn't that we were totally critical. I think what we were presented with was pretty strong to begin with. And I think all of us, if we had something we wanted to bring up, we did. And sometimes it was developed either more or less or adjusted accordingly. So there was always, I think, an open door to that.
If I can add that,
Sure.
yeah, San Francisco was definitely a character in this production. It was also a microcosm or a metaphor for today in America and even the world, which is so beautiful about Warrior is you can look at Warrior and see that everything that we see in society right now, politically and with our immigrant struggles and patriarchy and white supremacy, it's in Warrior right now, today. So that makes it so very timely. And I connected directly with San Francisco because that's where I was born and that's where my great-great-grandfather came and started building the railroad. So I was all with all of that. But it's so clear to see that how the director said, this is all happening today with immigrant scapegoating and all of this, immigration, banning people of color. Like, it didn't just happen. We're not just bringing like the issues with Muslims or Mexicans up now for the first time. It happened back then in the 1870s when the Anti-Chinese Exclusion Act prevented Chinese women from coming into this country because of the racism. Was like, we don't want any Chinese born in this country to claim right of birth. That all happened. We don't talk about that. So the amazing thing about Warrior is that it's really telling the Chinese American history like it's never been told before about Hollywood. So that is so gratifying to be part of a production that is really examining today through the lens of yesterday,
Wow.
and presented in a smorgasbord of entertainment, you know, like action, genre, beautiful people. Well, I'm not talking about me, but like the younger people. You
I'm
know?
not talking about me.
But also, if I can get back to your question about what's it's like working with Asian actors coming into a production like that now, I mean, it's really like a dream come true. And I think I said yesterday, which I heard myself say for the first time, it's like, I want to say it again, it's like coming home to a home I've never been to before.
Wow.
For a Chinese American actor to come onto a set and see other people like me in a warm environment where you know you're gonna eat some good food. You
Yeah.
know? And like I came on the set, I met Jason Tobin from Better Luck Tomorrow. Instantly felt like a brother, you know, and he's from the UK. And then I saw Dustin Nguyen, amazing, beautiful person, living in Vietnam right now. Olivia Chang from Canada, Diane Don from LA in Canada, Hoon Lee from Boston, New York City. I mean, like, I saw Joe Taslim get out of his car in a hotel and goes, "Hey, I'm Joe." I'm like, he was so sweet. Joe Taslim, you know, from The Raid, super sweet human being, you know. So we have all these Asians from all over the world meeting to do this, to tell the story written by Bruce Lee. I mean, how effing amazing is that?
Amazing.
So it's like, will that ever happen again in my life? I don't know, you know? But like, I could die and say I was in my dream production.
Yeah, don't do that though.
Yeah, don't do that. Excellent. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Now, was this the original story before Kung Fu, or they changed it? Like this was supposed to be the real Kung Fu, and they changed it, the story, or how did that work?
I don't believe, I don't believe that's the case. I believe that Kung Fu, especially if you read the new Bruce Lee biography, and also right now playing in Theater 12 is Iron Fist and Kung Fu Kicks, which is a documentary which also discusses about and also my book and my DVD on Amazon Prime, Films of Fury, the Kung Fu movie, talk about that breakdown. But at this point, no, I don't, this is not adapted from the original Kung Fu.
Okay.
Kung Fu was a Western set, you know, in the Old West. This is not in the Old, this is in the new Middle West.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anything, Bruce Lee's treatment for what he was shopping around as Kung Fu was the inspiration for this. Because it is inspired by his early writings. How much of it is specifically Kung Fu and how much of it is specifically this, I don't know. Shannon may know, and Justin Lin may know, but it's certainly inspired by this. And I think Bruce probably had this in mind and not Kung Fu with David Carradine.
Yeah, well, that's,
Absolutely, yeah.
I think you can watch it on Amazon Prime also.
you
Oh,
can,
really?
yes.
We have that.
That's what I was
Okay.
told, I don't know for sure.
And also,
We'll check it out.
they'll have a DVD of the first season, certainly. We don't have it yet. but-
DVD is out.
Oh, it is out?
It is out, you
There
can
go.
buy it somewhere, DVD.
On Amazon, right now,
Right now?
if you know the,
If
you
you
know the
order it now,
Wi-Fi
you
here.
get it tomorrow.
That's right, and they'll sign it.
Oh, that's true.
Henry, I believe, have lived through the change of where Asian actors have been more accepted for something other than just easy stereotypes. For both of your experiences, what has it been like when you started working to what it's like now, in terms of number of parts and the receptions you get on sets?
Well, in a lot of ways, it hasn't changed dramatically. There are more parts because there are more projects. But really, like I said, my first thing was a henchman, a Vietnamese henchman. And here I am, I'm now the head of the whole Tong. So, okay, I rose up in the ranks, you know. So, yes, there are more roles out there now than there have ever been. And there are more roles that are non-stereotypic than there have ever been.
I think that's the key. They're non-stereotypical. So we get more roles as henchmen, but we could be likable henchmen. You know, whereas in the past, we're just bad henchmen.
Right.
So now I could be like a dynamic henchman that has an interior life that is interesting to other people. That's not just, oh, he's a villain. He's actually the anti-hero. You know, like everyone in Warrior is a bad guy, but a good guy. You know, in that way. You know, those
Yeah.
kind of roles weren't written 20 years ago.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And also, you're seeing, I don't get them so much like corporate types.
Right.
But I think that's because I'm not seen as a corporate type. But there are more of those kinds of roles out there, and people are getting auditioned for those kinds of things more. So the breadth of roles has changed somewhat. It's been a slow process. And some shows have been more diverse over the years than others. You know, Law and Order, for instance, has had, so I applaud that, and I'm happy to be able to be in that position to do that kind of stuff.
I dare say you can't do that now. I mean, in other words, I don't think you could get a part today.
It's one thing to portray an immigrant whose English is not great,
Right.
but to do it gratuitously when it's not necessary. Why does a corporate banker have to have an accent? He's got experience. Why does he have to sound like that? Now, if he has a slight accent, that's fine, because he may not have grown up here, but he's worked here for 20, 30 years. So, I mean, there are gradations of all that. But to think that if you're Asian, then you must be able to speak with an accent. The other thing about Warrior, which I liked, and I think all of us on set really appreciated, was how they took the old concept of Asians speaking with an Asian accent, even if they were speaking to each other in their own language. And they twisted it around so that when they spoke to each other, it was in perfect English, but that when they were speaking to white characters, they had an accent. That makes sense.
That happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
I talked to Marty Scorsese about that on Kundun,
Yeah.
because if we're supposedly speaking to each other, it's a movie about the Dalai Lama. The Chinese and the Dalai Lama didn't speak English to each other. So if they're speaking English to each other in the film, why would they have accents?
It's like,
So, I mean, okay, if they're speaking Mandarin to each other, or if they're speaking Tibetan to each other, there should be maybe a slight difference, but they should be understood. But they're not speaking English to each other.
Right.
And he just went, he knew that, but he went with the convention that was
Yeah.
prominent at
And,
the time.
and of course, Bruce Lee himself in Way of the Dragon, the whole movie was based on the fact that these people couldn't understand each other, that the Italians couldn't understand the Chinese, but of course, when everything is dubbed into English, all of that goes out the window.
Right.
But originally, Bruce was already well attuned to that in 1972. And this is how far we have and have not come.
Start of your careers to now, how much things have changed in your careers and in your industry, being an Asian in the industry, and also what are the things you can tell other young, upcoming talent, people of color, Asian, South Asian, not, about entering this industry now and succeeding in it?
Just in a nutshell, I mean, that's a huge question. For me, in a nutshell, when I arrived in New York City in 1991, I had a difficult time finding any sort of work as an actor. And I was lucky to get into like experimental theater where it didn't matter what color you were. So it's, you just perform the art. But if I tried to cross into like traditional theater or conventional theater or film, I had to be a Chinese character. So the color of my skin, played an important role on the kind of work I did. So I learned quickly that, oh wow, if I was to appear on stage, I'm not a blank canvas if I had to open my mouth. So I found that at that time I couldn't really audition for TV and film because those roles in the 90s were only relegated to, you know, like gang roles in Chinatown. And so I only did experimental theater for many years, and I couldn't do any film or TV until I saw Lost, you know, with Daniel Day
Daniel
Kim.
Day Kim.
And I was like, oh my God, there's an Asian lead on TV, network TV. And then Better Luck Tomorrow came out, and this was like, you know, from the 90s to 2003 or 4. Things were changing, you know, and I had kids. I dropped out of theater, tried to make a living, which I found in flute making. So, and then at a certain time, my kids were old enough, and I thought, you know what, I'm getting itchy to get back into performing again. The culture changed. I actually was able to audition for TV and film, and there were roles. I started getting roles, and these roles were actually different from before. We could actually play more dimensional characters. So I got a role in 2014, and then just a month ago, I wrapped the film with Eddie Huang from Fresh Off the Boat. This film, Boogie, was based on his semi-autobiographical. That was written by a Chinese American. He directed it. And there I was going, oh my God, I'm here with someone who's writing from our sensibility, directing from our sensibility. It wasn't written by another person out of our culture. He knows what he wants. I was challenged by Eddie to get into what this means to be a father. I played Eddie's father. He had a very specific idea of who his father was, you know, this Taiwanese American caught between two cultures trying to assimilate. You know, I'm like, yes, give me that role. That role was never written for us. So that's how much our culture has changed in Hollywood. I mean, we have a director and writers who are behind the scenes making this happen.
And they're
for us.
getting financed.
And they're getting financed.
They're getting the
Yeah.
project
You know?
made.
So, I mean, I'm lucky that I have that sort of trajectory. I mean, I feel very fortunate that I'm in a place that actually, you know, it's like, how did I get here? You know, I don't know actually. But so, I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you know, I can tell you how you got here. You follow your passion. If you really like what you're doing and you want to do it well, and you want to help others, then things will ultimately, my experience has been, will work out. Because they'd rather work with people they like than they don't. And they also would rather work with people who can do the job than people who can't.
And I was chatting with Henry about this earlier today. It was really impressive how Warrior especially showed the woman characters, the complexities behind or with each woman in the show. It's not just one thing. It's just like women are in real life. It's complex, it's interesting, it's more than just a representation of one culture. It's all the subtleties of what a person is and who a woman is. I think that was really well done.
Yeah,
in
and
the show as well.
very strong women in an environment that was very dynamic and very different from our present culture. I mean, in some ways, our present culture is not that different, right? Because women are still being second-classed in a lot of things. It's just that more recently, you've got more women in power positions in different kinds of business and all of that. But here in the 1800s, these are three women who were not fluff. They weren't fooling around. They were taking everything by the horns and then grabbing hold and making it happen. You didn't have to like it, but that's what they were doing. So in terms of the project, even though it's only three women main characters, they are really strong characters. You just can't write them off.
They're totally like feminist women. I mean, they have agency. They take control of their lives in Warrior, and yeah, they're powerful women. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to like this, but we have been told that our time is done.
Oh.
Sad to say, but they're here. You're still at the table.
We
Have
can
to
do
work.
one more question.
Okay.
No, it's gonna cut off.
Oh, it's just kidding.
Okay. Women fighting. This is terrible. But also at the same time, I have a Bruce Lee robe. If anybody wants it, please let me know, because I have no use for it at this time. It's a Bruce Lee robe. So would you like, anybody want a Bruce Lee robe?
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk.